Hello, it's Debbie Simmonds here with eXp Realty in the Central Vancouver Island real estate market area in Chemainus, to be specific. Today is our Cowichan Valley professional review, and I'm delighted to have our very own pastor, Edgar Unrau, with us from the Calvary Baptist Church on River Road. Edgar?
Hello, yes, good to be with you, Debbie. I'm Edgar. I've been the pastor here at Calvary Baptist for 10 years now. We live in Chemainus. We moved onto the island about 12 years ago from Winnipeg, from the prairies. So it was quite a huge change coming from Winnipeg to Chemainus on the island. And married for 26 years, have two boys, 21 and 19. Yeah, and I enjoy being at our church and in this community that we're in over here in Chemainus.
Yeah, and we love having you, Edgar. Edgar is a wonderful part of our community. Being a pastor, I don't know if many people know this, I had a pastor neighbor, so I got to see firsthand a lot of things that went on. It's a difficult job. It is. It's part counselor, part business manager, part building manager, part people manager. And and the real reason is for him to convey God's word to us and be there for us in a spiritual way. My father was a doctor and a surgeon, so it has some parallels. Like when growing up in a household when there wasn't privacy and phone calls came to our home and that type of thing, you are in some very intense situations sometimes in your position and in doctors. It's when when people's lives are really, really in trouble, there's two places they go. They go to their pastor or they go to their doctor, or both, depending on what the news is. So anyway, we're so thankful it's you for us, Edgar. My husband and I are attenders when the church is open for a long time now, off and on since I was 38 years old. That's about 30 years or more. So anyway, and it's a lovely, lovely church. It's on 14 acres, which gives us a bit of latitude going forward with how we're going to come out of this crisis. We'll talk about that a little later. But I want to get into some questions now. So there are three main questions that we want to address that the public is wondering about and has no way to get the information. So Edgar, the first question is, how is this, the isolation and loneliness affecting people, not only in our congregation, but in our community, from your perspective, from what you're having to deal with?
Yeah, I've been, one of the things I've been trying to do is be in contact with each one of our family units every week through phone calls and texting and through emails. And for the most part, our church family is doing well and their communities seem to be doing well. But there is a segment that's quite lonely. It's usually the ones that don't have access to some of the technology that we have. Like we have a handful of folks that don't have computers and they don't have iPads or anything like that. So they're a little bit more isolated. So so it's all about the phone for them, getting on the phone. So when I get on the phone with them, it's usually a long conversation, because the isolation is getting to them, and I encourage them to go out for rides in their car and drive around and drive to some of their favorite spots that they go to, just as a way of getting out. But they're quite lonely. And then when you're isolated like that and you're watching news, then the fear factor raises up too. It's usually in isolation, you don't get such a clear understanding of what's going on. And so that's a sad combination. That loneliness, isolation, then fear, sitting in fear in isolation is not a good combination. So that's a concern for me, for our folks and for the folks in our community.
Absolutely. I understand completely. My 87-year-old mother is going through the same thing. She's in French Creek. We were supposed to move her here in with us in Chemainus into our home with us. And this crisis hit. And now there she is, isolated in her home, terrified to leave her home. She just came out for the first time on Mother's Day. And We actually had to sanitize one washroom, take her straight out onto the deck. It was a beautiful day, sit her 6 feet down at the end of the table, but that's the only physical contact and physical contact we've had with my mom since January. Thankfully, her neighbors are amazing. Her neighbors check on her, on her daily, and they from across the fence. And I know that our Chemainus people, in neighborhoods with elderly neighbors, are very kind and generous and are doing the same thing. The other segment I worry about, Edgar, are single parents. Wow, can you imagine being a single parent in this day and age, and your child is home from school, and you may or may not still be working, you don't have family around to support you? Wow, that would be pretty scary, I think.
Yeah, that would be it. That's a significant challenge. We don't have that many single parents in our congregation, but that factor, the child care factor, they can't go to school, but mom needs to work. But some, thankfully are able to take the government support right now, and that takes care of that situation. So, but ideally we want everybody to be going back to work and kids going back to school, but that's such a up in the air thing right now. But yeah, that isolation factor, I'm noticing that's those that have community before COVID, they are doing better than those who are a little bit more isolated before COVID even came along. So there's some that just choose to be a little bit more to themselves. I think they're hurting a little bit more because now it's even more confined than before. There's fewer people checking in on them because they don't have that community for whatever choices they've made or whatever's happened to them. So it's that factor.
Exactly. I saw a Facebook cartoon where it said a couple was shut in, and the man was an extrovert and the woman was an introvert. Well, the woman was happily, peacefully reading away, and the man was climbing the walls. So I think, there's a lot of that going on. Maybe some introverts will become extroverts after this. Anyway.
Yeah, I think so. I heard of a guy. I heard a man recently say that he's an extrovert, his wife's an introvert, and he's helping his wife's sanity by him going out for walks and talking to people at a distance because he needs more interaction.
Yeah.
It's coping. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Thank goodness they're coping and found a mechanism to do that. So the other burning question, the second burning question is, how is the overabundance of information affecting you, Pastor Edgar?
Well, there's two. There's myself, and then there's our congregation. And our congregation, there's so much info out there, and it's kind of contradictory to each other. So I'll be talking with some folks, and they'll be pretty hardcore with doing nothing. They're just staying in their house and doing nothing, getting groceries brought in. And that's according to what they've heard on the news. Then the next family will be going for walks. They'll go to the grocery store. They'll go for drives. They'll go to Home Depot. And it's such a contrast between the two. And both are following the information that they've received. So there's just so much info out there, and some of it is just not lining up, and it's almost contradictory. So it's some of our folks don't know what to do. So if I'm encouraging something, they might see that as going against what the health ministry has been saying.
Right.
So it's hard to know exactly what to do for some of our folks, and I'm trying to also help them just to see a little bit broader that there is more options to do. For us now, with yesterday the health minister said that religious services could start up if they stay under 50, and it doesn't seem like the BC government is that quick to put some more regulations on, some boundaries around that. So it's we're unsure. We have to think about when we start services again and what that's going to look like. We're in no rush to do it, but boy, it would be nice to have some more info like Alberta is receiving from their government. But
right. So, so that leads into our third question: is how are we going to ever get back to church here? How, what's the new normal? From my perspective, as soon as this started, like the church is like an extended family. That is my extended family. All those elderly people, I love them like their parents, grandparents. They're very dear to me. We lost one.
Yeah.
We lost one of our very dear sisters, Georgina Hollett, over this crisis. Very sad about that, and looking forward to somehow being able to celebrate her life at some point. But tithing is a very big, important thing we need to talk about. And one thing I've noticed as a parishioner all my life is this is a very difficult topic for ministers to talk about, because money is kind of a taboo subject. And yet the reality is the church is a business. It's not a profitable business, but it's an entity that has expenses, employees, money coming in, money going out that has to be managed. And that money isn't coming anywhere but from us. And we need to make that really clear. It's us who's going to, help it survive. You know what? I'll cut Netflix and I'll cut all my entertainment before I'll cut my tithing. And a valuable thing I learned before this started is that I can e-transfer my tithe now that we can't go to church. So it's on my calendar at 8 o'clock Friday morning. I just go in and e-transfer my, my tithe for the week. So when we go back, this is going to be better for everybody, if and when and how we can get back. There'll be no more, making out the check and writing out the envelope and everything, and putting that, and it'll all be seamlessly sent to the church. It doesn't have to be counted by volunteers and all that kind of stuff. I think that's going to be better, and of course less germs going around with paper and licking envelopes and all that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that people have gotten on to that. And I'm certainly going to be vocal about it when we do get back to church, that this is the way to go. And then when we're away, when church resumes, or if we're on holidays or we're sick, we have to work that day, we can still get our monies in. And that is unbelievably important right now for our church.
Yeah, very much. We've been wanting to move more towards e-transfers and those types of opportunities for people to give. And now we've been forced into it. So we've been forced to really promote that piece of it, because we rely on the offering by our people, like all the lights, the building, my salary, our other staff's salaries, it all comes in from that Sunday offering. So if people can be consistent with it, that is a huge help to us to continually pay our bills. And some people don't understand that churches like ours, we are a part of a denomination, but we survive on the money that comes into us. We're not given money by some mother church that's taking care of us. It's all right here with our folks. Yeah. And our folks have been fantastic. They're fantastic. Like we're doing. March was good. April, I haven't seen the numbers yet for April, but March was good. So it's our folks are stepping up, and I'm so grateful to God for that.
Yeah, I am too. And I don't know if everyone realizes in the community, but Edgar, the women's dinners that we do at the church that we've done is a huge volunteer effort. If anybody has been to them, they're in the spring and in the winter, and of course they're going to have to be modified now. And they're our big community outreach program to Chemainus. But they're just incredible. How many women do we have? Something like 330 in one, like 110 on a Monday night, Wednesday night, and Friday night. So they do 3 nights because there's so many women from Chemainus attending these. It's tremendous. And the effort that goes into this on the part of the volunteers, they decorate that place like you wouldn't believe. They have a fashion show in the spring, which the women love, and good food and great fellowships, singing, some presentations, lots of draw giveaways of gifts, and it's just a fantastic night for women in this community. So we really look forward to that opening again. We look forward to our church being open again, if and when that can happen. And, well, it will happen. It's just how. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we have to figure that out yet. And like I said, with the recent, as recently as yesterday, the announcements that were made, yeah, we got to figure out what that'll look like. And there's going to be boundaries around that too, because in Alberta, they're allowing them to meet, but there's going to be no singing, because singing is projecting mucus or spit or whatever into the air. So that they're saying is not allowed, and it's going to look different. But it's also a time then to reassess how we operate as a church, what our Sunday mornings look like, and how we as a church function, because we've been functioning very limitedly these last 2 months, and you kind of get an idea of what's important, what's not important, and hopefully that gets us into maybe rethinking how we are doing things as a church. So it's kind of, I'm hopeful and very excited about what this could look like as we get through this. I'm not excited about the virus being here, but how this could possibly change how we do church here at Calvary Baptist.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Edgar, you've been doing a wonderful job, recording and publishing your sermons on Sunday with nobody there in the church, and then doing blogs throughout the week. But we came across a thing the other day called Zoom exhaustion. So we've all been doing this actually more and more just in the last 4 weeks as people are learning Zoom. But, we can't conduct our lives like this long term. We can with some things, with some of my, real estate transactions and things like that. But spiritual things like the church and your church family, we need to be together. We might not need to be hugging and kissing and shaking hands like we love to do, but just being together is a big part of our existence. So just can't wait to be back together in the same room with all of our members. So thank you very, very much.
Yeah, and you're welcome.
Is there anything else you want to add?
You're welcome. The hope is that with the video things, it gets difficult because I think people are getting tired of looking at the screens and how many options are out there, and myself and others are noticing that views are going down. Not just for places like our church, but other podcasts that have been sending out podcasts for years and years. They're noticing that their listenership is going down. So I think there is an overall screen fatigue, social media, all of this. There's a fatigue out there, and I'm very hopeful that can translate into when we can have church, that people come here again. Yeah. And physically are here and don't think that, well, I'll just stay home and watch a church service online, but that they actually come physically. That's my hope, where some of this is leading towards. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, we're so thankful to have you, Edgar, and we thank you for everything that you do for our church and for our community. You probably see Edgar running around town. He's a jogger, so I quite often wave when I see Edgar jogging around town. And thanks once again, and we'll sign off. I'm Debbie Simmonds, eXp Realty in Chemainus, professional, caring, kind. Edgar?
And I'm Edgar Unrau, pastor at Calvary Baptist Church. You can find us at calvarybc.ca for video sermons, blogs, and really good children's teachings. So Thank you for having me on this episode. Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Edgar. Have a wonderful week, everybody.